Right.
Okay.
Let's go and get started again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So this next question is kind of like with everything else we've been talking about, kind of
Mm,
flies in the face of everything that's kind of generally accepted as being the norm.
yes.
Um, but I want to talk about calories. Why do we use them as a measurement unit? And also, I mean, that's the kind of technical side, but from my own experience of trying to advise people around them and people's confusion, like they say, oh, like keep your calories low and your protein high and your fiber high and all these like constantly changing proportions depending on what the latest study is. But like my argument is always, just watch your net carbohydrates. Like assuming you're following a kind of just a more tip. Well, like I know that the SAD diet is the typical diet in North America,
Mm,
but for me, the typical diet is more variety of protein and vegetables, like the
sure.
occasional carb. But like what I always feel that's so confusing for people is they'll say, oh, my BMR is 1700 calories. So yeah, I can have a Big Mac meal and I can have a chicken breast and sweet potato and a couple of eggs, and I'm still in a calorie deficit. And that is just very hard to re-educate people. That's like calorie counting and calorie deficit is really just like this such a slow
Hmm.
game in order to hit your
Yeah,
specifically
it doesn't it
like
doesn't
weight loss
work. It
goals.
absolutely does not work at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to start, as with most things, a little bit technical here.
Hmm.
Okay. The idea of calories, right, came about in the middle 1800s, right? And a physicist, doctor physicist guy, he was trying to figure out how to determine how much energy was in the food we were eating.
Hmm.
So, being a good scientist and who believed in the laws of thermodynamics, right? That energy can't be created, it can only be converted into form, right? He took food, and there's a way you have to process it to make it work properly, but essentially he took food, dried it out, put it into what's called a bomb calorimeter, which is basically just like it describes. It burns the whatever the substance is
Hmm.
completely up, right?
Hmm.
And he measured the heat generated in terms of how much did a gram, was it, no, it wasn't a gram of water, it was 100 grams of water, whatever, it was a small amount of water. How much did the temperature go up from the burn process? Because he knew how much fuel was used to burn
Hmm.
the food up, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then so whatever was more than that fuel, right? So he knew how many um, joules of energy went into the fuel,
Hmm.
and then whatever else it up was there that raised the temperature of the water up would have been energy that came from the food.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
from a straight physics perspective, if you're trying to figure out how much energy is in that item that you burned, that works great.
Hmm.
Because once again, energy gets converted to heat, heats up the water. You can measure that. You know how much energy was there, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. So if human beings were bomb calorimeters, calories would be very effective for us.
Hmm. Hmm.
We're not bomb calorimeters, is the problem.
Hmm.
Okay? When we eat food, we don't burn it up. Now,
Right.
the ancient Greeks, right, used to consider humans a form of a bomb calorimeter. They describe, we're talking ancient Greek philosophers, used to describe the fact that just like fire, right? If you burn a log with fire, right, the fire consumes the log and you're left with ashes and you get heat. So
Hmm.
the Greeks were smart guys, right? They said, so obviously we're getting something from the log. in terms of energy. That's the heat. And the
Hmm.
fire eats the log, and what's left is the waste product. And
Hmm.
humans eat food. Humans have body heat and energy to do stuff. So we get that from the food, and then we have
We expel the
stool and
rest. Yeah.
urine, and so we have
Hmm.
the waste product. So
Hmm.
just like the fire burns and consumes the log, we eat food and we consume it, and so we're fire. And
Hmm.
so the Greeks
Hmm.
used to consider that we actually burned food in our stomach,
Hmm.
essentially.
Hmm.
So that's where that whole idea comes from. It comes from ancient Greece. And so this physicist was just following that trend all the way through,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so he came up with a way of measuring the amount of heat or the amount of energy stored in food and said, okay, so if human beings are closed systems, first law of thermodynamics says that change, you cannot get rid of energy, you can only change its form in a closed system, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So if we assume that humans are closed systems, if you add food to that closed system and you burn it up, then you can either store it on as fat or burn it off as energy, right?
Hmm.
And that's all you can do.
Hmm.
The problem that this physicist had was that we had not defined the laws of thermodynamics very well yet. And human beings are the farthest thing from being a closed system,
Hmm.
right? We bring in energy, we expel energy, we do all this stuff all the time. So it's not a closed system.
Hmm.
The other thing is we don't actually burn our food in our bodies, right? We talk about consuming food or the consumption of food, and even some of the things we talk about, which is the causes of inflammation, right? Right,
Hmm.
and how we get ROSs from the citric acid cycle and all that, right? And that causes inflammation in the body. Inflammation is a burning term, right?
Hmm.
Comes from this whole concept that we burn our stuff, but we
Right.
don't burn our food.
Hmm.
And that's the problem is that for what, coming up on 200 years now, we've been scientifically thinking that we burn our food and we don't burn it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
What we do is we chemically slice the food up into small bits that we can chemically turn into something else.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
we are not a burning system, we are a chemical system that cuts the food up into component parts and then we process those component parts,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's why I stress biochem in everything I do, right? When some normal everyday health coach, right? And the normal guys are the guys who are at the gym telling you, okay, give me
I,
20 pull-ups and give me, 100 push-ups.
hmm.
They're thinking
Calories
calories,
in, calories out. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I'm saying,
Yeah.
no, that has nothing to do with it. It's all biochemical. So when you eat 100 calories of protein, just pure protein, right?
Hmm.
Your body uses a number of hormonal processes to break those proteins into constituent amino acids, which then go into your intestines, spread out to various parts of your body that need the amino acids to build stuff. And it does an anabolic process to build muscle, bone, nerve tissues, and all that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's all chemical. There's no burning in here. And and you do get some waste product and stuff, but it's 100 grams. It's 100 calories worth of protein. You get 100 calories of sugar instead of protein. Well, then
Hmm.
your body releases different hormones to deal with the sugar. The principal one being insulin.
Hmm.
It takes that sugar, and if it's pure sugar, all right, which means one uh, molecule of glucose and one molecule of fructose, right? That's sucrose, which is
Hmm.
table sugar. It breaks those apart. The glucose goes into your bloodstream, which the insulin helps to deal with. and and the insulin opens up pathways into the cell for the glucose to get into the cell,
Hmm.
which your body can then burn up through the TCA cycle, or it can turn into energy through the TCA cycle. But
Hmm.
the TCA cycle is limited to how much it can take up. So the other thing your body can do is it can take that glucose, convert it into glucagon. The
Hmm.
cell can do that, and that would be your muscle cells. So one of the reasons why I strongly stress for older adults to keep their lean body mass up is that your muscle cells are the biggest glucose sink in your body. If you eat a little extra glucose, right, sugar or carbs one day, your body will turn it into glucagon,
Hmm.
and store it in your muscles for energy. It can convert easily into energy at the cellular level later on,
Hmm.
which is good,
Hmm.
right? If your muscles can't accept any more glucagon because they're overstuffed, then it
Hmm.
sends it to the liver, which converts it into fat.
Hmm.
Okay, and if your liver can't take any more fat, because the liver should be the primary place you store body fat, then
Hmm.
it sends it to the adipose tissues and fills up the adipose tissues
Hmm.
until the adipose tissues get so large that they can't accept anymore. And then it has to do something else with this. And what happens then is that you get all the other stuff because now you have too much blood sugar constantly in your bloodstream, which
Hmm.
causes all kinds of health problems. One of the primary things being cardiovascular disease, which I'll
Hmm.
just point out. What happens is cardiovascular disease is that the blood glucose is poisonous to the cells. So you have endothelial damage on your arteries because the
Hmm.
arteries are where the pressure is the greatest, right? And if the cells get damaged, your body tries to repair the cells.
Hmm.
The biggest factor of repair your body uses is cholesterol. Cholesterol is a band-aid. It tries to repair the damaged cells with cholesterol. It doesn't cause
Hmm.
a heart attack. What causes the heart attack is the blood glucose.
Hmm.
Okay?
So just to loop back on that,
Mhm.
the reason that calorie as a measurement and calorie counting as a strategy is ineffective is because
It's not the way your
it's
body works,
yeah.
right? Same thing with fat. You eat 100 calories of fat. Your body breaks it up into constituent parts of fat. Some of it goes off and turns into ketone bodies because they're short chain fatty acids. Some of it
Hmm.
go to your liver for processing where they get stored as fat or they get sent out as triglycerides, which your
Hmm.
cells can pick up and convert into energy
Hmm.
through the
Yeah.
TCA Krebs
Yeah,
cycle.
I mean, and I think from like a practical view as well, people who are trying to lose weight on a calorie counting approach, let's
Mm-hmm.
say they are trying to come in 500 calories
Mm-hmm.
below their daily quota, because they haven't gone into a ketogenic state, they're actually quite hungry,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they're kind of teetering on that seesaw between almost being in there, not quite there, and then they'll use some of their calories to like have some carbs, and so it just keeps them just out of that. So they're not quite giving their body enough um uh, like glucose for their daily requirement. Because if that's their
Mm-hmm.
if that's how they've always been running their body, so they're never quite dipping in because like, but still ultimately when people are in a calorie deficit and they lose weight from that, really what they are doing is they are dipping into ketosis very briefly in order to make up the energy
But
required with
potentially,
ketones.
not
Potentially.
not always, because you
Mm.
could be burning other things. Okay, so let's get back though. So remember, we're talking chemical processes now, right? So
Mm.
the whole concept of calories in, calories out is that whatever you eat has so many calories, and the estimate is basically 4 calories per gram of protein. Actually, it's a little bit less. It's like 3.8, but okay, we'll call it
Mm.
4. 4 grams, 4 calories for every gram of carbohydrate, right? But
Mm.
once again, people start making differentiation between what you can digest, what you can't digest, but that's a technicality. And then 9 calories for every gram of fat, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But if that were true, and so the whole idea of calories in, calories out is that 100 calories, 100 calories of sugar is the
Mm-hmm.
same as 100 calories of protein, is the same as 100 calories of
Mm-hmm.
fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so if we look at the production of ATP, right? One um, molecule of glucose, right? Working with one molecule of oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's a combustion cycle, right? Uh, what that produces is about 32 ATP, right? So that's how much you get. Here we go. How much ATP is produced? I want to get the exact numbers here. Produced by glucose and um, the Krebs cycle. So okay, so yeah, so the glucose produces all in total about 30 to 32 molecules of ADP, right? So that's how much
Mm-hmm.
energy you get from one molecule of glucose. From one glucose of palmitic acid, which is a 16 carbon fat. And the reason we use palmitic acid here is that's the form that your liver stores
Mm-hmm.
fat in, right? So that becomes the thing to use as equivalencies here, right? So you get one molecule of glucose, one molecule of oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Goes through the cycle, does all the stuff. You end up with 30 to 32 molecules of ATP, which is your
Okay.
energy, right?
Okay.
One molecule of palmitic acid, right? So it's a C16 carbon. Um, it's a little bit larger than the glucose, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of number of carbon elements on it, which becomes obvious here because what happens is when that goes through the cycle, you end up getting 106 ATP, molecules of ATP.
Mm. Okay.
So you get significantly more ATP for one molecule of fatty acid
Mm.
plus one molecule of oxygen going through the cycle
Yep.
versus one molecule of glucose and one molecule of oxygen going through the cycle.
Wow.
There's no way 100 calories of sugar
Protein.
is
Yep.
equivalent to the amount in terms of energy to 100 calories of fatty acids. Just
Right.
right there, it just can't be done because it's a chemical process, not a
Mm-hmm.
burning process. Now,
Mm.
when your body takes this energy and utilizes it, like in your muscles, right? It contracts. That's some use of ATP there, right? That at that point doesn't matter, right? Whether the ATP was produced in your muscle from glucose or from fatty acids, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. It's going to contract and your muscles are working just fine,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So in that level, it works out. So if you're telling me, oh, okay, I ran um, 2 miles on the treadmill today, and the treadmill said I burned 150 calories.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one, that's an ex, an estimate that no one can actually tell unless you get there and get the fancy masks
Mm.
on. They and all
Mm-hmm.
that, right? They're estimating that completely,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be
Mm-hmm.
off by a great deal. But the whole idea is that how effectively is your body converting whether it's glucose or fatty acid into ATP, which is the
Mm-hmm.
unit of energy that drives everything. So if you just ate a carb heavy meal, your body's going to burn that off for all kinds of hormonal reasons, right? And you did your 100 or your 2 miles on the treadmill,
Mm-hmm.
you're burning off a lot less glucose than you are if you're burning fatty acids.
Mm-hmm.
The,
Mm-hmm.
or I should say, a lot more glucose than you are if you're burning fatty acids, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens with the glucose? If you have excess glucose, it turns into fat on your body,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is not where you want it if you're doing this whole concept that if I exercise more. So, yes, exercise does burn off energy reserves. Okay? But there's no way you can equate that if I eat this much and I exercise this much, it equals this much body fat that
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
gain or lose. So this estimate that has been around for 40 years, that since I've been, in the gym, was 3,500 calories equals 1 pound. Well, 1 pound of fat is, at 9 calories per gram is about 3,500 calories, right? That doesn't work, right?
Hmm.
You need hormonal actions. So you're in the gym. You just and I deal with my long-term runners on this one because every long-term runner, every guy who does marathons or endurance sports, they've been told by their coaches, even today, you got to carb load before the event.
Hmm. Hmm.
Eat eat pasta and stuff. Get your carbs built up. Because what they want is they want to load up your muscles with glucagon, right? Glucogen, and because that's your muscles will use that for energy. The trouble is there's only so much your muscles can
Hmm.
store.
Hmm.
And for anyone who tried to run a marathon, for example, the thing everyone always talked about for the longest time was hitting the wall.
Hmm.
And hitting the wall for a marathon runner is when you run out of glycogen stores in your
Hmm.
muscles, and
Hmm.
your body has to quickly convert to ketone production to
Hmm.
fuel your body, and it takes a little bit of time. And so when you hit the wall as a marathon runner, you're at that point where your body doesn't have any more glucose to burn,
Hmm.
right? And it's trying to convert to ketone production. It takes time.